This is Center Stage, putting your firm in the spotlight by highlighting business owners and other industry experts to help take your firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week, talking about something that I've seen a lot on various forums, social media groups, stuff like that, and that's kind of the expectations around starting a new job in the legal field, whether you're moving over to a new law firm, maybe you're going from big law down to small law, maybe you're a partner in a new firm, or maybe you're starting your own firm, whatever the case is. I know that I've seen a lot of lawyers have questions around what they can expect and how they can either fit in culturally, or maybe what the expectations are around growth, or all those sorts of things. And so to help provide some insight on that, and someone who has had some firsthand experience with this, is attorney Cherylyn Harley LeBon. Cherylyn, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Oh, my pleasure to be with you. I'm really looking forward to it.
So yeah, before we jump in, let's give the brief introduction, who you are and why we got you on this week.
So I'm a partner at Dunlap, Bennett & Ludwig, which is in Washington, D.C. metro area. And I practice in the corporate and government contracts arena. And before I joined my firm, and I joined 1 month before the pandemic hit, so I joined in February 2020, so a rather challenging time to be starting a practice. But before I joined my firm, I have worked the intersection of business and government for over 20 years. So I started out my career in Washington, D.C. as a high-level lawyer in the House of Representatives. I've also worked as a lawyer in the U.S. Senate. Wow. And then I was a political appointee in a previous administration as an appointee at the Department of Veterans Affairs, and also an appointee for 4 years at the Small Business Administration. So I work with companies not only around the country, but around the world, and help them navigate working with the federal government, and help them navigate, working through the federal regulations. And then I also am a corporate lawyer, and I work with companies of all sizes and help them work through due diligence, M&A, buy-sale agreements, just all sorts of corporate issues that you would expect a company of any size to have.
Got it. So that's, so I mean, you have a lot of experience, clearly. So, I mean, obviously a great person to have this conversation with. So I guess kind of where I want to start is, when someone is getting started at a new firm, or maybe they're opening a new firm and they've got to build that initial book of business. I think that's one of the biggest obstacles that many lawyers face starting out. I know that you talk a lot about purposeful networking. What exactly does that mean?
So, let me sort of set the table for just how it functions at a law firm, because law firms are all different, right? There can be hybrid, sort of models, John, but the bottom line is, as a partner, you are going to have some sort of responsibility for bringing in business. And unfortunately, the skills of being able to generate clients and business isn't something that you're taught in law school. Yeah. It's really, quite frankly, in my opinion, something that lawyers are not taught to do, right? So this is really a challenge for some lawyers, is how do you go about generating business, right? And what does that look like? And so back to your point of purposeful networking, our time as lawyers is pretty tight. We've got to bring in business, but we also have to bill. Yeah. And when you're looking at an hourly rate, then you really need to be very judicious about your time. And for me, I like to call it purposeful networking, because I like to network with people that I know are at a certain level, right? Because I'm asking them to open up their network to me, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that those that I'm networking with have access to business owners, CEOs, and people that I might want to represent, right?
Yeah.
Um, so a a B2C type of networking, and that's business to consumer, probably is not the best environment to me.
Mhm.
I really want to focus on the B2B. So I
Yeah.
hope that kind of helps
Yeah.
articulate my
Yeah.
point of
And,
purposeful
and
networking.
yeah, exactly. And we talk about, we have a resource that we make available to people called an ideal client checklist. And basically all of that, starts with identifying who is the ideal person that you want to work with. And so that sounds like that is what you're doing. You have
Right,
that ideal potential client in mind, and now you are integrating that into your networking
right,
strategy.
right. And also, John, it's also accessing those spheres of influence, right, that we
Mhm.
call, right?
Yeah.
So being able to access certain networks. And often people will ask me, well, Cheryl, what's a good referral for you? And I tell them about my practice. I tell them the type of clients I look for. I love coachable clients, John,
Mm.
right?
Oh yeah.
I love clients that are small but emerging companies, right? I like high energy CEOs and business owners because I know I'm high energy. And that's the type of, entrepreneur and business owner I want to work with, one that's growing. For example, business owner that is thinking about ramping down or possibly retire. That's probably not the best business owner or type of referral from me.
Right. Exactly. And so you have your strategy more or less in place when you go to network. You know who you're looking for.
Mhm.
And I think that most attorneys, or lawyers, if they get that in place, they get some business cards, they make some connections, and then they run into another obstacle. And maybe they're not really diligent about following up after that meeting. Maybe they're really hesitant about following up. I know one thing that we hear a lot of times, especially with our clients around email marketing, is, well, we don't want to annoy our list. We don't want to become a nuisance. And I see that sort of mindset is kind of pervasive in multiple areas. And so what is your strategy and mindset around following up and being persistent with the people that you meet while networking?
So I think follow up is pretty important because
Mhm.
I think that kind of sets the tone of the type of lawyer you are. Are
Yeah.
you a responsive person or not? So I think follow up is very important. Second of all, there's a certain cadence, right? There are busier weeks than others. But for me now I just had my 2-year anniversary at my firm. What I'm doing is I like to spend that first quarter of the year doing a lot of BD, right? Because I know that halfway through the year, and BD, I mean business development, I know that halfway through the year and that last half of the year is going to be very busy,
Mm.
particularly starting like November 1 till the end of December, because people want to do certain filings. They want to either dissolve a company, they want to form a company for tax reasons. So that sort of like that last quarter is going to be pretty busy. So in my mind and my strategy is I want to spend the first quarter of the beginning of that new year getting in the webinars, the speaking presentations, the speeches. I want to be doing that sort of high level BD, getting out there, sort of fishing in some new ponds. I want to do that first quarter, so then I have, John, several months of follow up activity, right?
Mm. Yeah. No, that's brilliant. And you know, and it's good. I like that you have a strategy, because that's one of the things that we've noticed is the one of the biggest places where a lot of lawyers fall short is they just don't keep in touch. And you talk about referrals. We are huge on referrals. Um, it all comes from a lack of following up. And the
Mm-hmm.
more that you follow up, the more you keep in touch, the more that you're going to see those referrals come in, the more that people are going to think of you first. And, I love that it's, kind of in this networking strategy and this networking conversation that we're having, because, we talk about it a lot from the marketing side of things, but it has so many applicable uses all over
Right.
the place.
Right.
Yeah.
Two key follow-up points. The one thing I do, normally during the day, I am talking to clients and doing my billables. So my follow-up often comes on the weekends and in the evenings. And what I will do is send the delayed emails, right?
Right.
So if I'm doing emails at 9 p.m. or 10 o'clock, then I just do delay so that the next morning those people are getting those emails fresh between 9 and 10 and 11 a.m., right? The second distinction here that I'd like to share with your listeners is that before I joined my firm, I also had my own business for 11 years. So I was an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Because after I left the Small Business Administration, I was approached by a number of CEOs across the country who said, Cherylyn, I know you're leaving the administration. We have a new president coming in, and there's going to be all sorts of rules and regulations. Can you help us navigate through them? And I said, sure. At the time, I had an infant and a toddler, so I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but this was a great opportunity to start my own business and be purposeful and be engaged, be an entrepreneur, while also making sure I'm available to my family, right?
Yeah.
And so for 11 years, I had my own business working with entrepreneurs and small businesses all across the country who needed help navigating the legislative and regulatory environment in Washington. And as my children grew, once they started school or in grammar school and they're all day, the size of my clients grew, right? So then I started to move from the small and mid-sized to larger multinational corporations and international corporations, and traveling more and really sort of working more with CEOs, executive vice presidents, SVPs on their Washington strategy. And so what I learned being the CEO of my own business is that, bill collection is difficult, right? Bill collection are difficult conversations to have, right?
Yeah.
Number two, when the work has to get done and you are on deadlines, I'm the final stop, right? I would hire 1099s to help me with larger projects, but the bottom line is everything stopped with me.
Yeah.
And there was also a feast and famine element, right? So it would be a little slow sometimes, and then when it was feast, it was really, really busy. And so I really think that those 11 years that I had my own business completely prepared me for being a successful partner at my current law firm.
Yeah. And so let's transition into that, because I think, that's a good way to kind of segue into this. Let's say that someone is moving to a new law firm, whether they are just coming from owning their business, or maybe they're coming from big law, coming down to maybe a smaller firm, mid-sized firm, whatever the case is. How do you kind of ingrain yourself into a new firm's culture? How do you fit in, for lack of a better term?
Right. So in an all perfect world, John, you are doing your due diligence on the firm, your potential partners before you get there, right? So that's exactly what I did. I sat down with a few of the managing partners. I really liked them a lot. And then I said, the next step is to see what I have to work with, right? Because the whole point of joining a firm was for me to have extra arms and legs, to be able to bring in bigger clients. And I just have always believed two heads are better than one. And so now I have our firm is about 80 attorneys across the country. Yeah. So now I was going to have access to 80 attorneys. And how fun is this going to be? But first I needed to understand people's expertise, their sweet spots, a little bit more of their personalities, whether I would be able to work with them. And that really is, I mean, there's the initial, interviews and discussions that you have with people. And then, John, the hard work begins once you join the firm. That is building those relationships with your colleagues, right? Getting to know the cadence, the working style. Does your style mesh with theirs? I'm a firm believer in response time for my client, right? I respond to every client by the close of business. That may not be the style of one of your other partners or associates that you're working with. So you guys need to talk and be very transparent about what that looks like and what are the expectations, right? If I bring in business and another partner or associate has more expertise to handle this situation, then I'm going to have certain expectations of how the client should be managed and serviced. Yeah. And we need to talk about that so that we're all singing from the same hymn book.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's great. And so now, maybe on the other side of that, and you talked about how you decided to go and start your own firm. What advice would you have for someone who may be in that same position? They're currently at another firm, whatever the size is, and they're thinking about going solo, starting their own firm. What kind of advice do you have about someone to ultimately make that decision?
So when I had my own business, it was not a law firm. It was an LLC. It was a consulting firm. And one of the reasons why I joined, I wanted to go to a firm because I really wanted to be able to have, I like to say, extra arms and legs. And I'll tell you, I do work with a number of solo practitioners because obviously with a firm of 80 attorneys, you get conflicted out. Or sometimes it's just a question of expertise or bandwidth, whatever the case may be. Yeah. And, and I always ask my solo practitioner colleagues, so tell me what you love about working, for yourself. Again, they love working for themselves, right? They may not want the rules of a larger firm. And they also feel that financially it benefits them more. And so, my recommendation and advice is you really need to be very organized, John. You're a solo practitioner. You need to be organized and you need to have really organized, good support. So either good, a really good organized admin support or, really, really good law clerks or paralegals, because again, the most important issue is managing the workflow and response time. Because if you cannot respond to clients in an adequate, time frame, no matter how great you are, your clients have to move on to someone else.
Yeah,
it's that simple. Yeah. They have pressing issues that need to be attended to, and if you can't get back to them for 5 days or a week later because you're tied up in a trial or in litigation, that's just not going to work for some clients.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of leads me into my next question here about, even whether you're starting your own firm or even you're just trying to build your book of business, whether it's your emphasis on response time or how diligently you follow up, there are a lot of times, lawyers face obstacles and worry about how they can stand out from their competitors. Right. What can someone do to stand out? What has worked for you? What have you seen work for others?
I'll tell you, the main thing that I find when clients come to me is that response time. Because I'll ask them, so, how did you find me? Why are you looking for another attorney? Response time. Response time and also cost that doesn't correlate to the response time, right? Or the quality of work. And so one of the things, my mantra, John, is number one, I want to produce, and I expect my associates and colleagues to produce the highest quality work product, number one. And number two, the high level of customer service that correlates with that high level of work product. So two things again, high level work product, and two, that customer service that clients demand and require and deserve.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's how that's going to bolster the word of mouth, because you're going to create a little army of ambassadors for your firm.
Yeah.
And I mean, and response time especially, I think, is so important. I mean, I had this issue a couple of months ago, not with a lawyer, but I had some trees fall on my house, and I had to call around really quick to find some tree companies to come get this tree off of my house. And I reached out probably to 6, 7 different companies. 3 companies never even got back to me. Like, I still am technically waiting on them to get back to me. 2 of them like got back to me after a week. 1 company literally called me back an hour later. Guess which one I ended up hiring?
There you go. Right? There you go.
Yeah. So a lot of times, response time and how you respond to something is very important in terms of standing out and getting that extra business, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the last question that I have for you here, kind of before we wrap up, is, when you are going to start your own firm, or even, and this may differ based on the firm that you go and work for, but what are some realistic expectations around the first year of starting your firm, maybe in terms of revenue, the number of cases, anything like that?
Excellent question. So revenue, the first year is going to be a little low. And I will tell you, my first year, particularly because it was COVID, was a slow year for me for lots of reasons. COVID. Number 2, you're building a practice, you're building your book of business. Number 3, it also takes time to build a rapport with your other partners, right?
Yeah.
So, it's sort of, John, a confluence of factors that are normally going to mean, right, that first year is going to be slow. Now, granted, I did not have a portable legal business, right? Because I had a consulting firm, and some of those clients did not want to join the law firm, right? So some partners who may be laterals may have a book of business, but still, when you're a lateral and you're sort of bringing your clients, not all of them are going to come. And it may also take several months for them to move with you. So again, no matter how you look at it, John, there is going to be reduced revenue, whether you're brand new starting a practice or even a lateral coming in. There is going to be a transition. So, and I think you're bringing up very good points. Realistic expectations, knowing that those first couple years, it's going to be a lot of work, because you are going to need to be doing a lot of networking to expand your practice. So what some of my colleagues say, and everything that I've read from various books about business development, not only in law, but also accounting and other fields, it takes a solid 3 years to build a robust legal practice. 3 years.
Wow.
I'm in year 2.
Yep.
I love what I do, John. I love it. I love my clients. I get up every morning and I think, okay, whose problem am I going to solve today? However, it's a lot of work, right?
Oh yeah.
I knew that going in, and still that does not deter me, not one single moment.
Yeah. And, especially us as a marketing company, and working with a lot of solo and smaller firms, and maybe they don't have as much of a marketing budget or just an overall budget to put towards, accelerating that growth. I think you still hit on a couple of good points and things that people can do on their own. Purposeful networking, staying in touch, following up consistently. Those things, and we preach this to our audience. Those are things that can help you grow and help you, win the cases that may otherwise go to some of your competitors.
And John, I should add, I do most of my marketing myself. You're looking at I know Cherylyn better than anyone,
Right.
so I do it myself. I have
Yeah.
one referral group. I've got boards I serve on. Again, I've been in this area for 25 years.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you know, from the very beginning of the conversation, I've had a number of different roles in Washington, D.C. And through
Yeah.
those roles, I've built a pretty extensive network. And I tap into those networks to help me build my practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's honestly great. And that's on it. And that's why part of our messaging and part of our resources are designed around here are the tools, and we're here to help you. You don't have to hire us. We're here to
Right.
help if you need us, but we have all the tools that you can leverage our marketing expertise, because they don't teach you how to market a firm in law
They do
school,
not.
but
They
we're
do not.
giving you tools to help you out. And so whether you really trust yourself, yourself, you want to handle your marketing yourself, absolutely go for it. 100%. We're going to cheer you on all the way. But
Yeah.
then we're here, if you need us. And so all kinds of good stuff there. Really great insight. I do have one final question for you. It's a question that we ask all of our guests here. And that is, if you had one piece of advice for our listeners, what would it be?
I would say, the journey in business development is always a very interesting one. And so as you build any business, whether it be legal, maybe a medical practice, I think that you constantly need to think about being nimble
Mm.
and being creative about how you pursue your business development activities, right? And there's no one real way to do it, John.
Yeah.
But I would encourage everyone to be open to trying different ways of building your business.
Yes, 100%. I completely agree with that. Cheryl, this has been absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed getting your insight. That's going to do it for us this week. Continue to give us those ratings on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave a review wherever you're consuming the show. We're all over the place, but I know you guys know that. That's going to be it. Cheryl, thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure, John. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/center stage.